I used to do lots of things.
I used to do things and I'd say things and Jesus I was evil. Take things and break things and Jesus I was evil. I never shook, baby.
Right.
Okay, here we are,
Yeah, episode number 100.
100 episodes later.
Yeah.
Well, this is it, right? We said we'll do 100. We're like Tarantino.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing
Yeah.
10 movies. All right, so we better make this a good one.
Go
Go out with a bang.
Yeah. 100 episodes of bitching about culture and
It's been fun.
yeah.
Ish.
I mean, I think I've really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, I like to
On the
listen
show.
to myself. I
Yeah.
just fast forward through your parts. No, I actually don't even listen to the episodes anymore. I did for a while.
Yeah.
I did listen to episode 1, not all of it, but some of it. I even saw I'm wearing the same shirt. I did that on purpose. I wore episode 1, Punch and Tigers. Yep. I thought, and it was right at the top of my drawer, and I was like, I think I wore that in the first episode. It's a baseball team in Japan, by the way, for those who aren't familiar with the Japanese baseball teams. I was listening to that episode. We had a little more structure back then. I think we were saying like, oh, we're gonna be doing like profiles of people. First episode was Lenny Bruce, which I think was great. I think we will do more profiles too. It's actually I think at that time we thought we were gonna have less to talk about, maybe, so we needed more of that.
Right.
But there's always stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
I think we'll still do profiles when necessary.
Yep.
We did that, and then we also talked about sensitivity readers in young adult fiction.
Kasoko Jackson, that case, that bullshit case.
By the way, episode 1 was July 2021, which is I know it's cliche to always say like, oh, went fast, but like that's crazy that's
like 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. So props to us. I think that a statistic is like most podcasts stop after, I don't think they reach like 10 episodes.
Yeah.
And I guess that's relative. Like, how long is an episode? Are you doing it twice a week, once a month? But still, we're definitely way, way above the average.
Yeah. So suck it.
Suck it, you podcast. Yeah, we don't need more podcasts. Listen to ours. Don't start your own.
Yeah.
I know you have that impulse. If you're a white man, you have to start a podcast. I know. I joked about it, and then I started my own. But our voices haven't been heard enough throughout history. So
I think you even said that to me when you reached out to me on Twitter, and you were like, I know, like I've told everybody that, we don't need any more podcasts, and I'm not that. And but I really think we should start one.
Yes. And I tweeted about that. I was like, yeah, I know. I even I think retweeted my old tweet about like, breaking news, I'm not starting a podcast. And then I was like, yeah, so about that. 6 months later, or a year later, whatever it was. But it's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's been great.
Yep.
We were online buddies, and now we've become real buddies and lovers. Is that too far?
Well, casual. It's
casual
thing
when I'm in town. Yeah,
you're the person I let finger me. Everyone else is just kind of jumping on it.
Well, that's just part of living in Los Angeles.
I know.
You can't help it. Hey, got me.
Oh, damn it!
I don't know how many listeners we've lost with our fingering bit, but sticking with it. 100 more episodes, 100 years. We're gonna do this for 100 years, like Rick and Morty. Right. 100 years of episodes. I'm gonna die with these headphones on. That's how I want to go out.
I'm gonna die with a finger in me, apparently.
Yep, that'll be it. Goes too far. You know what? I'll stop there. So we wanted to just kind of touch on. We have some definitely like current event stuff we want to talk about. Mm-hmm. But I think first, you just want to talk about like, how do you think the culture has changed, if it's changed since July 2021? Do you have any opinions off the top of your head about that? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think things are still pretty bleak, but I think we're seeing a lot more pushback towards the stuff that we've been, criticizing, that we are so far ahead of the game on everybody else on.
Yes, I give us credit for that. We did a lot of this backlash, by the way.
Yeah. All
We've been
the lawsuits against major corporations that have been silencing employees started with us.
Yeah, we've been rightfully
here.
credited for all of that.
All the pushback against like forcing 11-year-olds to learn about how to have safe non-binary anal sex, and all the lawsuits that are coming up. That's us.
That's us.
Netflix still, as far as I can tell, Dave Chappelle is still on Netflix, and again, right here.
Yeah, we've been cited in legal briefs.
Yes,
I've been quoted during depositions.
Yeah.
No,
and we're not doing it for the money. We would like money, but
we would like money. We'd like to do it for money.
If you'd like to hire us to be,
we have a Patreon. Yeah, we have a Patreon, 4 different tiers. I did just tweet it that if you've been with us since the beginning or not, if you're brand new, we have 3 tiers, all with merch, as little as $3 a month, as much $3. That's nothing. That's like beer during happy hour in 2014. Like
exactly, yeah.
Can you still get $3 beers anywhere? Can you get $3 beers anywhere in LA?
No. Well, there's this guy I know. His name's Dr. Midnight. I
can't tell you joking.
No. I am joking.
Okay.
Yeah, $3 beers. I think the cheapest happy hour beer that I've seen lately is $5.
Oh, really? Yeah. I think I can definitely get $4 beers nearby. I don't know if I can get $3. Maybe they'll do like $3, maybe like $3 in like an Eagles game or something, which I'm not going to go to unless I'm playing the Saints. But maybe stuff like that, or like Philly specials. But yeah, $3 beers. I remember in college we had $2 beers during a certain happy hour. $2 Rolling Rocks, which was delicious. Rolling Rock is a delicious beer. Do you know what that is?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we got it here.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not, because it's like it's just like a brewery in Pennsylvania, so I'd be surprised I'm surprised they have it out there.
Yeah.
Anywho, so for as little as that, you can sign up for our Patreon, or and that gets you a sticker and also an ebook, one of my ebooks, or you can sign up for the most, where you can get a bunch of different stuff and one of my paperbacks or an ebook if that's what you prefer. And anything in between. It's all there in the thing below. So
and if you just want to donate money to us and not get anything in return, you want this to be like
you can Venmo us.
Yeah, you can do that. No. Or if you want to hire us to be like, maverick, groundbreaking innovators, we have 100 episodes.
We do have 100 episodes. I'm putting that on my resume.
Yeah, 100 episodes of a kick-ass podcast. Just innovating.
Yeah. Well, so my thoughts on the culture are I do think it's gotten better. I think a lot of people who were taking it whole hog are a lot more skeptical now. A lot of people. I also think it's lost its like gleam and cachet. A lot of this identity politics stuff, which is bad for art, which is what this podcast is about, really. I don't know as much like the institutions. You don't see nearly as much of the rhetoric from politicians. Like a lot of the whole Latinx stuff has totally reversed. I know Define Else posted that recently, where it's like, if you want, basically it was a salon being like 2017, like use Latinx or whatever, and then it's like recently it's like, oh, if you actually want to be inclusive, drop Latinx, and it's like shit like that. I think a lot of the speech, the canceling is a lot less, and I just think a lot of people, since we started this, like there was the Amber Heard trial, right? There's been a lot more people that have been, I don't know, rectified. Is that the right word? What's the word I'm looking for? Not validated. Redeemed. Sure. Like redeemed. People who are all like the people I feel the worst for are just normies who get an everyday interaction caught on camera. And a lot of them through, journalistic endeavors of others like Barry Weiss and other people have like redeemed them. And a lot of the stuff that was, like I said, was just kind of being eaten whole hog in 2020 and 2021, maybe even 2022, there's been like a reversal. I think of the Central Park girl who with the birder and the dog walker, that whole scenario. We've had Kyle Rittenhouse since then, right? That was after we started the podcast, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Which anyone who has taken one semester of criminal law in law school would know that he was gonna be found not guilty once you had all of the facts. But of course, that's what the media does. They don't want you to have all the facts and explain to you how these things work. And I think that like there are always people who are just going to be set in their ways, who want to believe, all the crit bullshit.
Yeah.
It makes them feel good because I've been there.
Yeah.
I think I've said that early on this show, and I continue to say it. Like I was very much of that ilk before, because it feels good when you're in university, graduate school, you're around young liberal people, you're validated by professors and administrators. You feel like you're on the right side of history, and you're just not. Like I'm telling you, you're not. In many ways, it's not like you're always necessarily wrong either all the time. It's because things are more complicated.
Yeah.
And which is not fun. That's why I think we've kind of strayed from the Israel-Palestine issue. One, this isn't a political show. This isn't like a geopolitics show. I know we get into it sometimes because everything is mixed into everything. And we will actually this episode, but from the American free speech point of view, not the military aspect of it. But I just think I do think maybe I have a better, more optimistic than you are. I do think it's getting better. I think the combination of COVID lockdowns, the craziness of that, was very revealing, and for a lot of people, it scared them straight, like me. Like that was a big part of my red pill moment.
Yeah.
And the race, like a lot of the race shit, like Black Lives Matter turning out to be, surprise, surprise, complete frauds. And a lot of these groups being fraudulent and like most groups, self-interested.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people woke up, and now very topical is the Israel-Palestine issue, which a lot of people are also waking up to it too. I think a lot of liberal-minded people, urbanites, Jewish people, who are the most, I think statistically, one of the most solidly Democrat voters. Which I don't know if that's the case as much with how big the Orthodox population has gotten. They're kind of solidly Republican. But overall, like the typical secular, even conservative Jew, is a Democrat vote. I think a lot of that, and they have a lot of power. So it's more pronounced in administrative positions, in media, in entertainment. I think they're shocked by what they're seeing, and we are going to get into that. But that's just, I don't know. I haven't seen the sorts of book cancellations that we were seeing there for a while. If anything, the shows have gotten like a lot of the identity heavy shows have not been picked up again. I think they're trimming the fat. A lot of that was just hubris and surplus. And they're like, well, this, like, we don't have the money to virtue signal anymore. Like we need shit that sells, and people like good quality TV and movies, and there are a number of ways to do that. So I think that's all good.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely more optimistic than I am pessimistic. I think the reason why I might be a little more, slightly more cautiously optimistic is because like this has happened to me like multiple times in the last year of like, cool, I think maybe the tide's starting to change, and then some crazy controversy happens, like, here we go. It seems so.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, but I do think that overall things are better. Things are going in a better direction. One thing too is that up until a couple of years ago, my parents didn't really pay much attention to culture war stuff, and when I did tell them some crazy, and my parents are they're pretty like old school liberal types. They're pretty moderate by today's standards, but they've always been generally left leaning. But whenever I did tell them, like, hey, did you hear about like this comedian getting canceled or whatever because of a dumb joke? And then they're like, oh, and they're always, really, I didn't hear about that. Yeah, that is messed up. But now when I do see them, they're kind of like, did you hear about the school that's been showing like pornographic comic books? And it's like, isn't that messed up? And I'm like, yeah, this has been happening for a while. So,
Yeah, a lot of parents. I mean, you don't have like young siblings, right?
No, I just have one sister who's 4 years younger than me, I think.
Right,
So,
but like she's not like in like middle school or
no,
anything.
no.
Like, right. So a lot that happened to a lot of parents were like, wait a minute, what's going on at these schools when I'm at work? Like what, like that, and that's why you saw the school board fights and the big shift there. Why a lot of people got elected and Republicans got elected in like solidly blue areas. I think you saw spikes in crime where it's like, oh, maybe these progressive policies don't fucking work. And like people need to have consequences for their actions. And you can write past injustices about like nonviolent crime or I mean, I use violent broadly as in like theft being violent in the terms of like it's causing harm versus like someone smoking weed and like for personal use.
Right.
Like you can like that's not going to like destroy society, like just open thievery and burglary. And like we need, and I think you're seeing a lot of pushback there, even more, and that's trending. I mean, there were just elections here. I think overall the Republicans did not very well, and I use Republican Democrat generally because that's almost everywhere that's who's being elected. But and I'm not even saying that I'd vote for Republicans in all these situations, but I do think right now for local politics, I'm a lot more concerned about Republicans in federal politics. I think a lot of them are not cases, but for local politics where it's like school boards, county commissioners, prosecutors, I'd much rather have Republicans right now because Democrats just seem to be like fucking insane. Some of this stuff. And even where I live has shifted actually a lot to the right in the past few years. And even this election that Republicans didn't do well, where I live did, like the county, the district, all of this went Republican. Where like the one person who was still a Democrat was actually the sheriff, who was pretty well liked.
Really?
Which is weird because that means all these Republicans were getting elected, but a Democrat sheriff, and he was just voted out, which was really surprising. Like this is actually one of the few, because I love to pay attention to yard signs. I'm like, wait, that house was Republican, this is Democrat. The sheriff was the only one who I would see like the Republican congressman, like Jeff Van Drew is my congressman, and I'd see like the Democrat sheriff on the same yard. I'm like, oh, that's weird, because you wouldn't see that. Like you wouldn't see a Biden sign and then a Van Drew sign, or like. So I think he was really well liked because he wasn't one of these like weird crit progressive sheriffs. Like the prosecutor, like to their credit, the DA here, when all that craziness was going down, like he was a black prosecutor. He's like, I'm prosecuting shit. He's like, we're not one of these like Seattle, Portland type, like, no, like, and that was good. And we didn't have the craziness. There's a little looting in Atlantic City right at like George Floyd, but for like, they have actually, I believe, have been prosecuting crimes, which is funny that that's the standard. But, but I mean, that just goes to show, like, even that this well-liked sheriff, he had a D next to his name. And the sheriff who lost last time, even though everyone else in that column won in 2021, the Republican won this time, and all those other Republicans won. So
I mean,
go ahead.
When even like solidly left-leaning people and voters are starting to realize like shit, like the politicians that I vote for, they care more about the comfort of criminals over the safety of law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, man. It's just like, because don't get me wrong, I definitely think Republicans go too far too. Like in some areas, I might be voting Democrat because the Republicans have too much power. But what I'm seeing in cities, or was seeing more of, is like where there's no challenge, it just keeps going farther and farther to the left, and you get these crazy policies that are destroying societies. Where in red areas, maybe if it's like abortion stuff, but that's not an issue here. Like no politician would win doing like a anti-abortion message in New Jersey. Even though some might say like it does go too far, which I do believe that it goes too far in New Jersey. But no one would be like, we're going to get rid of it. So this is not a problem. So you can like vote red and not have to worry about abortion being like stripped from you.
Yeah.
So I guess if that is maybe your big issue, if you're in like Oklahoma or Indiana or something, then yeah, you might be voting Democrat or something. You might want a Democrat governor. If that's a big issue. And even if you're not a woman, like, or you're someone who doesn't want kids, women's rights, like that there are some sick stories out there. So basically I'm saying all this to be like, I just think I've been thinking a lot lately about like how important local politics are. Local politics is, and how that is just like it affects your life, I think, so much more. Like I was tweeting this last year. I'm like, your governor, I think, is the most important. Probably your governor and your DA are like the most important people, most important politicians in your life.
Right. So. Yeah, and so to kind of piggyback off of that, and also to tie into the sort of broader cultural shift, Anna Kasparian, someone who I've never really cared much for, of the Young Turks, she went on Ben Shapiro a few months ago. So sometime last year. Yeah, she went on a show.
I didn't know that. Good for her to go on that.
And a year before that, they had a debate on some other thing, but both conversations were very civil. Nice. And they even managed to find some common ground. And I like how Kasparian, like, again, someone who I've never been a fan of, but even she admitted, like, yeah, identity politics. And she even got in trouble earlier this year from the woke news, where she said, I'm not a vulva owner, or I'm not a uterus haver. I'm a mom. Yeah. I'm a woman.
So which is like such a low bar.
I know, yeah. But still, like, considering how far, like insanely left she is, like, okay, wow, there's a little bit of sanity there. And so actually, like, hearing her get into a discussion with a sane conservative, like, okay, she's and there's more to her views. And she conceded that she's become more into localism, because I wish that presidential elections were not as big of a deal as they are now.
It's not even that. It's like everything is nationalized. Like, unfortunately, local elections are nationalized.
Yes.
For instance, every election season, I get shit in my mailbox from both parties. I see that's all of the commercials are ads, and it'll be like them talking shit about this guy, and then the next one is the talking shit about that woman, like the other politician. And some of the stuff was about like abortion stuff in New Jersey. It's like women's reproductive rights, and I look it up. It's like there's like nothing about that. Like no sane Republican would run on anti-abortion stuff in New Jersey. It just wouldn't happen. And of course, because that is what's working for Democrats right now. And by the way, I'm going to flip this too against Republicans. Like, that's what's working for Democrats right now, is abortion. It actually, much to my surprise in 2022, and a lot of people, like analysts' surprise, was how effective that is for bringing turnout. So of course they're going to beat that drum, right? If they have an R next to their name, they're going to take away your abortion rights. But the same goes for the Republicans. I was getting stuff from the Republicans, the local Republicans, and it's like, is this from 2020? It's about like police stuff and Black Lives Matter stuff. It's like, this hasn't been relevant in like a while. So they're beating that drum. It's like the same thing, like socialism stuff, like that hasn't really been in the conversation. Like the socialists lost, like it's not even close. Like the left, the far left in at least the federal government, like really had their wings clipped, like for the most part. And they just get folded into the morass of the Democratic Party because they're all sellouts. But it's like, you got like this isn't even relevant anymore. Anyway, so that's the unfortunate reality, is that everything just becomes so nationalized, even though it's like, no, though actually we did have, and I know I just fucking said like 10 minutes ago, this isn't a political show, but we did have a local issue recently about windmills being put up. I don't know if you saw some tweets about that. I had they, like, the federal government wants to put like a windmill farm like out in the ocean. It was going to cause all these problems. There were protests this summer. It was funny because it was actually kind of a horseshoe issue.
Oh, really?
Where you had right-wing people who just hate Biden, and the energy will like look terrible at these beach communities, and it will fuck up the beach, and it will it's kind of like, why do you put it here? Like put it somewhere else, like something like that. And wind energy like isn't that good anyway. and I am for clean energy, but like wind energy
Sure.
isn't great and it's going to fuck up the beaches. And that's a big part of the local economy here. It's a huge part of the economy here.
Yeah.
Not even local, just like New Jersey. And then the horseshoe was, well, a lot of environmentalists were getting against it because it was like killing whales and killing wildlife and stuff like that. So it's kind of like one of those interesting horseshoe theories, or not theories, horseshoe issues. But anyway, the Danish or Norwegian or whatever company pulled out because of the pressure. But that was like a local issue that our local congressmen did have like the signs like save our shores, stop the windmills. Then of course the Democrat houses have like save our shores, bring the windmills for clean energy and all that shit. So that they got they lost.
So real quick, you were talking about like the abortion thing because it reminded me of a similar thing here when LA got our new mayor, Karen Bass, when she was debating Rick Caruso, another Democrat, but he had just switched to parties. And I don't like Karen Bass. She's kind of just like a bland, inept establishment, semi woke Democratic politician. There's nothing really. Sure. She's done really badly, I think, so far. But I remember, like I think it might have been the very first question, the very first debate that she was asked. Basically saying like, what unique qualities do you bring would you bring to the position of mayor of Los Angeles or something like that? And she goes, well, I've always championed, I've always been pro-choice. I was like, why are you saying that in LA? We're solidly blue across the board on everything. Like, how about and like every newspaper that was covering that was saying like, the big issues in LA are homelessness, things like crime and housing. And it's like, bring up one of those issues. Like, what have you done in the past that would be relevant? Right. Like, okay, like 90% of the people here are pro-choice, to some degree. Like, don't even. It was just such a dumb virtue signaling.
Yeah, it's the same because it gets a big group of people to go like, oh, well, I'm with her on that. It doesn't matter. That's like not affecting my life at all.
And I think the moderator even kind of said, well, okay, but what does that have to do specifically with the position of mayor? She goes, well, I'm just bringing it up just to show that I've always been a lifelong progressive. Okay, what problem did you solve throughout your many years in politics? Like, what?
Yeah. Are they doing it? Have there been any sorts of I don't know, directives or anything to address the issues like homelessness and housing?
Yeah, there's a lot of they've implemented a lot of ineffective strategies.
Nice.
And then it's funny, and then because like once every few weeks I'll check and just be like, all right, what's going on? Like what's happening here? And then like every interview with Karen Bass, and one of the reporters was like, because it seems like people have noticed very little to no change in homelessness, and she goes, well, it might not seem like we're doing much, but we are. It's like, well, that doesn't solve it. It doesn't address anything.
Well, last thing I'll say about like pure politics before we get into free speech, but here's a good example of, I think, the pendulum going the other way, but also still a mix of identity politics. So Philly just elected a mayor. Of course, whoever won the Democratic primary was going to be elected mayor of Philly. Like Philly is overwhelmingly blue, right? Even though the Republican was he's an Asian guy, he actually had a lot more support than a Republican would usually get. And Philly did go more red for Trump than it like ever had. It's still like 80% Democrat, 20%, right? So the mayor is the first Black woman to be elected mayor, and she's from like a modest upbringing, like North Philly, very poor, I believe, Black woman. And of course, that's the headlines always, right? Like Philly's first Black. But you know what her policies are? She's bringing back stop and frisk.
Oh shit!
And she's also wants to do like full year-round school, because when the kids are out of school, they cause mayhem. If that was a Republican, stop and frisk was in New York, and they were calling it like fascist and like authoritarian, and she's like, I'm bringing back stop and frisk because it's like, who's talking? And I think that's good. Like, I think stop and frisk can be abused. I'm not okay. Maybe I shouldn't say it's good. I don't know enough, but like I learned about in law school. But like, she's actually addressing crime. It's not just like, oh, I'm a Black woman, I'm gonna bring. It's like, no, but like, and that's in the articles, but it's never like the headline. Where if a Republican got elected, it would be like, mayor brings back stop and frisk, like controversial stop and frisk. And I'm like, that's such a sign that I think is like going in the right directions. Like, here is a politician, and I'm all for her, for who wants to address crime, which is a huge issue in Philly. I had a gun pulled on me in Philly this time last year.
Whoa.
It's not cool. It was
cool
very not cool.
Because I'm lining up potential co-hosts. So
yeah, very jarring. And like school, and I think she said she wants to get. I think she might even use the term like parents' rights or something. Like that's like a Republican, like stop and frisk and parental rights. That's like textbook Republican local political stuff, and this is a Democrat black woman.
Is she a dino then? By that logic,
that's not getting thrown around at all. She won by like she was very popular. She won of course, the primary against much more progressive challengers. And it's always funny to me when you look at these maps, like the progressive option, like in New York City, it was the same thing. Because they're going to elect the Democrat pretty much no matter what. So it's really the primary. The progressive, like super crit type always wins like the university area. So that one won like a lot around Penn, and like the liberal white sections of like wealthy liberal white sections. And then like the mayor who wins is usually a person of color, like a black, they win like the poor parts. And the actual like diverse parts. Like Eric Adams did the same thing. He like swept in the Bronx and Queens and Brooklyn and Staten Island, where even though the Republican actually won Staten Island like usual, where like the more identity politics progressive person wins like Manhattan, or like the wealthier parts of Manhattan. So same thing happened here, and I think that's good because I have more in common. Or like I believe in more of the policies of the the person who wins, because they actually want to address. I don't know if Eric Adams is doing a great job. I don't know, he kind of vacillates between having good policies and being identity like he kind of uses identity stuff when it fits him. But anyway, I would much rather have them than the crazy progressive mayors and other people in the government that they have elected before. So basically I'm saying I think it's headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think so too. Plus Disney, is pushing Snow White back. So I think that's good too. I think
so that's another, but how does that have to do with Ziegler?
I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what the reasoning is. I mean, it's probably just like a typical sort of, what do you call it? Like putting out the fire sort of thing of like, oh, we're just doing some reshoots or something like that. I don't know if,
dude, she might be the first actor to like blacklist herself.
Yeah, I know.
Like you can't do that. Like this is a business. You can't be shitting on your own project. There have been, I think a recent example was, Don't You Worry, Darling, right? That had some controversy.
Right.
Nothing political, more just like people not liking each other. I think Florence Pugh didn't get along with Olivia Wilde, who directed it. And like I think it was like Florence Pugh could tell like didn't want to, like she wasn't gonna go the extra mile, but she still sucked it up and did the interviews and did that and did what's expected of her, I guess, to like fulfill your contract. She didn't shit on the project. She didn't shit on Rachel Ziegler's out there saying her co-star, the prince, like might get scenes cut because this isn't about romance. It's like I feel so bad. He's probably just sitting at home like, what?
Yeah, seriously. Like and also shitting on the old Snow White. Like, fine, okay, maybe things about it didn't age too well, but you can gloss over that. You can be like, hey, there are a lot of great things about that old one, and we want to put our own
positives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Also, who is going to see Snow White who didn't see the original Snow White?
Yeah.
Honestly, like who or knows about it, at least from culture. I know like maybe some kids didn't sit down and watch the original from start to finish, but no one's just like going into Snow White with a fresh set of eyes. Be like, I wonder what this is about. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
So why would you like castigate this? What isn't it Disney's first movie or first like fairy tale movie?
Yeah. Their first animated feature length.
What are you thinking?
I know. Yeah, I just shed all over the original. One thing that I thought was kind of interesting, and again, may be a very small sign, positive sign of culture going in a good direction. So the Buzz Lightyear movie came out. I think it might have been last year. I think, right?
Yeah, I think that was last year.
And so Chris Evans played like the human version of who and the character was originally played by Tim Allen, who's a very Republican conservative guy. But Chris Evans in interviews, I because he's a very, he's a pretty woke guy. But I thought he was gonna like just be silent on it, but he was glowing in like, oh, Tim Allen did such a great job as Buzz Lightyear, and it's such an honor to like fill those shoes, and I hope I can live up to what he did. That it's like, yeah, he left the politics out of it. He's like, I'm here to like, I'm just happy to like be here and contribute to this legacy. Ziegler could have done that of like, I'm gonna gloss over some of the more problematic elements and just celebrate this wonderful legacy that I'm lucky to be a part of.
Well, it's like, it doesn't seem that hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem that hard just to be positive. Like, the hard part was making the movie. All you have to do is do some dumb interviews, and no one will likely even know about them unless you really fuck it up, which she did. And there were like YouTube videos and tweets about like these interviews where she comes off as, and then, oh my God, her comments during the strike or whatever. It's like, it was one of those times where like, I'm very pro union, and she was saying like, if I have to stand around all day in a princess outfit, I should be compensated accordingly. It's like, how many millions of dollars did you like? The strikes are for like writers who can't pay their rent, and for like, I don't know, cameramen or key grips, or I don't know if those people are in the same union, but like people who are extras who don't want their image taken from AI and reused in perpetuity, like not the fucking princess of a Disney movie. Like, and it's just so tone deaf and so just like grafting on like, oh, I'm the left-wing person in the union, so I'm the same as everyone else. Like, no, you're not. You're not. Like, yes, you have to be in the union, you have to pay your dues, great. Like, you should be there in solidarity for the people who aren't getting paid millions of dollars to, quote, wear a princess outfit.
But I think it is, kind of getting back to like our thoughts on cultures. Like, again, I think it's a good thing that she's gotten so much fucking criticism, and also criticism from fans of being like, why are you saying this shit during such a tumultuous time? Why are you trashing this beloved Disney movie? Maybe
no one's told her it's dumb. Like, you're wrong. Like, no one has said that because she's young and pretty and successful. And no one's been like, shut the fuck up. Like, what do you do until now? And then you had South Park come out with the Kathleen Kennedy episode. We talked about that, I think, last episode, right? That's great. And South Park always kind of like nail social commentary, and by having a platform as big as South Park doing that, I think a lot of people. So that's all good.
I think Utopia is right around the corner. Actually, I think you've changed my mind, Ben. I think.
Well, no, there's still a lot of work to be done, Joe. Vote blue. It's not. You always, I think, we got to where we were in 2020, right? Oh, and I do want to have an aside. To be a little pessimistic, but because people weren't paying attention, and it was, oh, this is just going to remain on the campuses. Oh, this is just, well, then that person at Reed College or at Vassar or Sarah Lawrence is now 26 and she's in the HR department. Or she, he's 31 and he's a middle manager and pushing this crap. Or I think another big part was the DEI coordinators. That area got completely axed. And the entire industry, which is good. That was the biggest waste of money and counterproductive, caused more issues amongst people of diverse backgrounds. Not
to be like, oh, like I foresaw this happening, but I remember it was in 2018. I read an article, and it was about because a few years before, Google decided to release their diversity numbers and say, oh, like we're 87% white and 74% male and this and that. And then each year they were going to like release report. And so since they started implementing these DEI initiatives, over the course of, I think, like 3 years, they spent $150 million on these initiatives, and it barely moved the numbers. Like, it did almost nothing. Like they had a whole fucking department and hundreds of people, and like we're gonna do this report and we're gonna show everybody. And it did basically nothing. And I was noticing that in 2018. Like
I think like affirmative action, just like affirmative action. I think DI like it was overwhelmingly white women like also benefited from this. Just like is like I mean, I did see numbers that a lot of places hired more people who were non-white or not meant like as long as they're qualified, then I don't really care. Like that doesn't matter to me. If they're not, then it's your own business. So okay, I think that'd be a really foolish business model, business practice. But in terms of, but you didn't need DI coordinators to do that. Like you could just advertise in other areas, look for people with actual diverse backgrounds, not just a black kid with Nigerian parents who went to Columbia. How about someone who grew up in the Bronx who went to Columbia, who was actually like poor? There's son of immigrants who weren't doctors or administrators or whatever it is. But anyway, I will say, I think a lot of these gains will be lost if Trump becomes president. I do. I think people will revert. That's in no way to say go vote for Biden, because I would never. We're an RFK podcast, but I do think a lot of this will be completely reversed. I think people will forget. They'll say democracy is going to end and we're going to become a fascist state and all this same dumb shit. If it didn't happen, if Trump becomes president. So.
Yeah, it's. I'm reminded of the tagline for Alien versus Predator. Whoever wins, we lose. That's
really that's very good.
It's like the movie was garbage, but it's a good tagline.
I kind of like the Alien versus Predator in a way. I have to rewatch it, but I remember kind of thinking, I was like, oh, this is actually kind of cool.
I mean, I think it's a fine, Friday night watch. So you get like a pizza and a 6-pack. You're just like, whatever. I'm just going to watch some dumb, like, aliens punching each other for an hour and a half. Like, sure. It's probably one of the best versions of that type of thing ever out there. I have a friend. I have a few Trump supporting friends, and it's like,
racist.
I know, yeah. Why am I still friends with them? No, and it's funny because like I'll agree with like 95 to like 99% of their criticisms of the left. I'm like, yeah, dude, like so much in the Democratic Party. Yeah, I'm so on board with that. And like I'm not even a never Trumper. I don't like him, but I don't spend my time being, oh, my dude, Trump is the worst. Trump's white supremacist. Like I just have no. Yeah. I'm agnostic and ambivalent about Trump. I just don't really care one way or the other. Really, I don't have strong feelings about him. But like, whenever I talk to my friends about Trump, I'm like, yeah, but I don't think you really understand that. Like woke stuff's really bad, but Trump contributed to it a lot. He said a lot of stupid, like, I don't know if I would necessarily say that he's a white supremacist or an outright racist, but he said a lot of dumb shit that fired up the wokies.
He did say a lot of dumb shit, and he also just like could have been better, and that was one of my main criticisms of him. Like I criticized him more for like things that like different things. Like I don't like him either, but for totally different reasons, and not like, oh, he didn't go far right enough. Like no, it's not that at all. It's more of he just was like a bad leader, and he could have handled, and he got in his own way because he's that much of an like egomaniac. I don't really care. It'd be like he never disavowed white supremacists, and there's a YouTube clip of him like disavowing white supremacy like 500 times. It's like, so this is like not true. Like doesn't mean he could have been better. To me, it's more like he gave tax cuts to the rich, and he like still did some of the wars that he didn't get us out of Afghanistan like he said he was going to do. He actually didn't do a lot with border stuff, even though Biden was worse. Like, so it wasn't just that. I don't want to just talk about Trump, but I think that he breaks people's brains, which is unfortunate. I want to say that if he wins again, people will be like, look, he already won before. We've done this already. I think we overreacted. We don't have to like him, but like the world's not going to end. In fact, I think the world's come close to ending under Biden, but I don't think people are that smart. I think people will revert back to the tribalism and go nuts.
I think episode 200, we're gonna be like, see, told you so. So
If we're even here.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so let's talk Israel and
Yeah.
Palestine. I think that's
Well, we reflected for like 45 minutes. I thought it was gonna be like 10 minutes.
I know, yeah.
So yeah, we're not going to talk about the I don't know, the war. Let's call
Yeah.
it the war.
The skirmish.
We're going to talk more about the implications for speech here.
Yeah.
And how I want to give us. Look, I will be self-deprecating sometimes. I will say when we're wrong about stuff. We nailed this one, Joe.
Mhm.
If you remember, listeners, I would say on this podcast, speaking to progressive, left-wing people, I would say it's going to come for you.
Mhm.
Like if you keep this up, it will come for you. It'll be reversed on you. And that's exactly what is happening with a lot of the Palestine protests. Kids, sometimes young adults, are being literally canceled, having job offers removed or rescinded, having their faces plastered on trucks and driven around Massachusetts, being being labeled everything, being labeled anti-Semitic and terrorist. Some of it is anti-Semitic and terroristic, some is not.
Yep.
Having their words given the least, well, what would we always say? Given the least
charitable interpretation.
Charitable interpretation, exactly. Like from the river to the sea. Some people say it means this, some say it means this, but the critics are always going to give it the worst possible interpretation, which in this case is genocidal. Yeah. Like if it's given the worst interpretation, it's genocide. So, and this is exactly what was going on for years against one side, and that's completely flipped because the people that you're doing this against have a lot of power. And I don't just mean like Jews. I'm not saying that. Right. I mean people who are supportive of Israel, whether they're Jewish or not. Yeah. Like they have a lot of power and control. It's one of the few areas in our government that there is broad bipartisan consensus. Unfortunately, it's one of the few areas. It's like tax cuts for the rich, screwing over student loans and medical, like the being in the pockets of the medical industry and like Israel. Those are the handful of things that there's bipartisan consensus on. Yeah. And screwing over the poor. And that's one of them. So when you thought that all these people were on your side because they said they were for Black Lives Matter and gay rights and abortion and all this other stuff, this was the one issue that they're not, or at least superficially. This one very much not, very much substantially. And now you're the ones who are being attacked, and all of a sudden these left-wing people are like, wait a minute, what about free speech? Just like it's the 1960s again, which we were saying the whole time. So yes, it's a big I told you so. I told you so, we told you so. But and I think this is just like at any Trump rally, right? At any right-wing rally, there might be like a Confederate flag. There might be someone with a racist sign. There might be someone with a monkey for Obama or something that's wrong and racist. But that doesn't mean that everyone there is that thing. And that's exactly what would be labeled. Everyone would be labeled. And now if there could be 999 protesters who just don't want to see children slain in airstrikes. But if one person has something supportive of Hamas, you're all going to be labeled that. And you laid this groundwork. Yes. Like you set this blank canvas, and then you start painting on it and created like, this is the picture that we're going to create. This is the field, right? These are the goalposts. These are the demarcations for the game. You've set this up, and now you're losing on the own field that you made. I don't
and the guilt by association thing too.
Yes, exactly. Guilt by association, being called the worst things, just like I said, the worst thing you call an American is a racist. We have that just like in our blood. Like that's the worst thing you could be called. We even gave that example with the Georgia shooter somewhere in Georgia who shot up a bunch of massage parlors that are doing sex work, killing mostly Asians, not all Asians. They didn't. He killed some white people too. And he came out, and this is a bloodthirsty, cold-blooded murderer. And he said, wait, whoa. That had nothing to do with them being Asian. That had to do with like the sex and God and all this stuff, like my Christianity and this stuff. But he, of course, had to say that he's not a racist because the worst thing you can call an American. It's always
you call me a bloodthirsty murderer, but you can't. Don't call me racist though.
Oh, I did all that. I meant to kill them where they stood, but I'm not a racist. I shoot. I shoot unarmed people equally,
regardless of race. Yes.
Yeah, regardless of race.
He's a very progressive guy. It
is. I don't see color.
Forward thinking. Yeah,
I don't see color. But also a terrorist is one of the worst things you call, and also who got labeled terrorists for like 2 years. People were protesting lockdowns, protesting COVID mandates, and you call them terrorists.
Yes.
Maybe some of them were. A handful might have been terrorists, wanted to blow up, Fed state,
or
FBI
like
offices.
A bag of snakes into City Hall or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that guy's my hero.
Yeah.
For those who don't get the reference, it was a South Asian man. Probably India or Pakistan, Bangladesh, one of those countries, just from the look of it. Yeah. And it was the title was like, "Man unleashes bag of cobras to fight bureaucracy." And that guy's my hero.
Freedom fighter.
He couldn't get his license for some shop or something, so he thinks but it might have been a cobra shop. That's why. It's like this is where my shop is now, motherfuckers.
Oh man.
But yeah, so and of course, and so another good sign I think is where I thought I was taking crazy pills for a year there in 2020. Mm-hmm. The ACLU, a group that was I wanted to work for them.
Did great work.
Yeah, for decades did great work. I wanted to work, like admirable work. Mm-hmm. In terms of upholding the First Amendment, which sometimes can be very ugly and uncomfortable. Yep. They totally switched late 2010s, not exactly after Trump, but really after the Charlottesville march. And there was really no one to fill that void. And we saw that there has been a few groups, most notably FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Equality, I think it is now.
Or is
Expression, that might be. It used to be education. I always forget. It used to be education because they've existed for a while, but it's really about school speech, both students and teachers, professors. But now they're just kind of like, well, we're just going to be the new ACLU, which is great. And I think they're quoted a lot now. They're referenced. They're not nearly as big as the ACLU, but they're definitely growing and becoming more. I know. I think like Joe Rogan talks about them. Breaking Points talks about them. So like big platforms do. So that's good. Like that's a sign in the right direction.
And I think they're doing so far a terrific job of remaining nonpartisan.
Totally.
Because they're the obvious threats to free speech on college campuses, but they've also been sticking up for students, even if the students were protesting something dumb. But it's like if they were peaceful and a conservative professor was trying to get them expelled or something, FIRE was there to protect to defend them.
Totally. So FIRE, like they say, they defend students. This being, even before this war, being one of the few areas where really left-wing speech would get silenced and would get censored is Palestine. And where professors, it was more of the typical situation would be like a professor, usually not even a conservative, usually it's like a classical liberal, saying something that maybe he or she had been teaching for 20 years. All of a sudden it's not okay. They don't use the right word. They don't, I don't know, even the right topic. They share a piece of art that is against someone's religion. The administrators have the backbones of a overcooked noodle, not even al dente, but just an overcooked noodle. And the professor gets put on like leave or something, and FIRE steps in and protects them, just like they do students who are having their speech taken away from administration or even from their fellow students. So really it should be about, as we know, conduct, threats of violence, those limited areas, doxing, like those limited areas of speech that are not protected. Hate speech is not a thing, which we've gone over so many times. It's still like I bet if you polled, I don't know, 1,000 diverse Americans, I bet you well over half, if not 3/4, would say hate speech is a crime, like unprotected.
It always cracks me up though. A quick aside about hate speech. I remember a couple of years ago there was some dipshit for the Washington Post wrote an article about why we should have hate speech.
There's a lot of them.
So. I know there's one in particular, and he was writing an article about why we should have hate speech laws, and it was just from an identitarian woke perspective. It wasn't like I'm against hate speech laws, period. But at least it like if you're gonna be in favor of them, at least apply them equally. But of course, it was just like, well, because of the rise in anti-Asian hate lately, like we need laws to protect that. And so, okay, but you can say, does that mean you can say you hate white people and it's okay? Like that's totally legal.
It's also like, I would love to see, like, do you know who is causing the vast majority of the anti-Asian hate? Like, it's not white people. Like, I'm sorry, I've seen it with my own eyes. It's vast majority not white people. That's all I'll say. It's actually kind of gross. I've seen it multiple times on the subway. People, like, literally people saying, like, get out of our country, like, go home, saying, like, doing like racist impersonations, moving their eyes, and not one of them has been white. Anyway, so I wonder if that, and that's always funny how it's like, it's kind of like the recently it's like, a bunch of Jewish kids get like corralled into a room, get scared away, threatened, and it's like, we have to stop Islamophobia. It's like, well, it's not really the problem here. And that speech is not protected. They're that that's threats. That's putting someone in danger. But just protesting, even if it's really unpleasant, that's fine. And a lot of people who for years were banging the drum against all types of protected speech, saying that they're criminals, are now on the other side of that. And it feels good. It feels good to be vindicated. That's the word I was looking for. Vindicated.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good one. Because I knew it started with the letter V, but I knew
validated.
Vilified was not the right one.
Validated, not the right. I'm glad we figured that out.
Yeah, only 45 minutes too late. Something along these lines, too, is that are you seeing some examples of overcorrection from the right?
100%. Definitely. So the right. What I was saying before was, they had their head down. They were focusing on economic stuff. Yeah, there was always the animating force of, coincidentally, anti-abortion, right? That galvanized a big part of the right for years, but that was still like a subset. But for a lot of people, it didn't really matter. It was, well, we'll control the courts, we'll control law enforcement, and we'll control the economy. And we don't really care what happens on campuses. We don't care what happens in music and art and all that stuff. Even corporations, because all the corporations like our tax breaks. And then all of a sudden that all changed, and the Democrats became just as corporate, and then they could do all the bullshit social posturing, whatever. So the kind of Chris Rufo side of the right said, fuck that. We're going to start fighting back, not being like values, like classical liberal values, like no, we're gonna do the same shit, just from the right-wing perspective, which is not good.
I was just about to bring up Chris Rufo.
I get the mentality. It's fighting fire with fire. I don't necessarily agree with it, because you have your values, right? I think that you should still just be open to free speech and the kind of classically openness, like let people talk and have their platforms and marketplace ideas and all that shit we like. But they're like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to be very open about getting rid of certain ideas. And there's some, like, I don't think we should have like pornographic material for like 7-year-olds, which didn't seem like that would be an issue. I get like, I don't think you should get rid of, I think a lot of it gets kind of merged together, when unfortunately a lot of the stuff does deserve a conversation. I think the biggest is like drag. Drag, I always thought was a transgressive, obviously adult form of entertainment. I never really cared for it, but I also don't think it should be illegal. Even within that, should drag be like, I think there is a difference between drag queen story hour and drag strip shows. And I wouldn't bring my kid to a drag queen story hour. But they should exist. Like, fine. If you want to do the absolute biggest suburban mom virtue signal on the planet, that's fine. I don't think that's inappropriate. I don't. I think a drag strip show, which they always devolve into, and people say it's not that, like, yes, it is,
Yeah.
is different. And no,
Yes.
I don't think it should be allowed with that. What I always say, if that was a woman in woman's clothes instead of a man in woman's clothes,
Yeah.
would that be appropriate? And the answer is no. So
Yeah,
why, like,
exactly.
why is this appropriate? So to me, that's so obvious.
Yeah.
But people like, so to answer your question, is there overcorrection? Well, no, it'd be like, we're getting rid of all drag, for instance.
Yeah.
Or all drag for kids. And like, I don't know, it does get sticky, but it is. And with this issue, with the Israel-Palestine issue, it's like DeSantis going after just like entire student groups,
Yes.
right, that are pro-Palestine or whatever it is. I don't know the details of it. I could see not want to use public funds for groups that are going to like supportive of Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
That's like an enemy combatant, I
Yeah.
guess, like terrorist organization.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're doing that.
Right.
If it's just like pro-Palestine, then no, of course not. Like that's the opposite of what they should be doing.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, no. Yeah, I was just about to bring up Chris Rufo because I watched an interview with him, and he's someone who, when he first emerged, I was largely on his side. Like, but now he's gotten very close to DeSantis, and they're really and so you know about that university that they are starting, or that they did start in Florida.
Well,
that was like
they
very
didn't start a university. They took one over, basically.
took one over. Yeah.
But it was funny. It was like this really like small liberal arts progressive school that just like they totally changed.
Yeah. And it's funny because like I consider myself a very patriotic, American loving person, but it's also like, you know, they're like, the whole basis of the school is kind of like teaching American exceptionalism. It's like, I came to that conclusion on my own. I don't want teachers to be.
Is it? I didn't.
Yeah, from what I understand, that they're very much like, we're, it's a very pro-America school, and very, and it's like, and also the state is getting involved. That's another thing too, where I'm like,
I think that can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that. I heard it was more. It feels very sketchy, where it's like they're letting in people who have like they for instance, they let in like a ton of baseball players, and they like didn't have a baseball team or something. They're like going to just make a team, and the GPA is like significantly less now, and it used to kind of just be like this haven for super progressive kids who wouldn't go to like a Florida State or University of Florida or even Miami. But then just kind of got like it was kind of like a hostile takeover of like the 80s, where like they would do that. I don't know. I found it kind of weird. I know Blockchain Report actually did a good episode on this. That's how I know this.
Yeah.
But I do know it didn't seem like the curriculum isn't what they talked about. I don't know if that's new. It seemed like they just are using it as a pet project and like kind of ruined the school instead of making it just more normal. And like teaching certain things that maybe weren't being taught that like should be taught at a university level. They are just kind of making it like almost, it felt like scummy, like a scam. Like just really lowering the standards and kind of taking away the purpose of the school.
Right. I mean, you know, I like maybe the article that I read was well, actually, the article was from a non-woke, like a pretty anti-woke publication. I can't remember the name of it off the time, but the way to describe it sounded like it's gonna be like not like explicitly over the top conservative, but it was also kind of like, we're gonna be like emphasizing American values, sort of thing. It was like, it sounds a little bit like indoctrination to me. Like it sounds a little bit like, you know, we're all these other schools are teaching, you know, are criticizing America. We're going to glorify America. It's like,
I don't think that's good either.
Right.
I think it should be, I don't know, like anything, it should be the good and the bad.
Yes.
Like which is any country, like any issue, really. It's is it Thomas Sowell, the classic line? There's no winners and losers, just trade-offs. Something like that.
There are no solutions.
No solutions, just trade-offs. That's it. No solutions, just trade-offs. So yeah, I mean that seems like a cringe school in the other direction. If they want to be like, I don't know, like a Hillsdale College or there's one in Pennsylvania. What's it called? Something Grove, or Grove City. I think it might be something like that. Like these are very like small liberal arts conservative schools that like don't accept public money, so they can be a lot stricter. And they can have like certain codes and not teach certain things like liberty. They want to be like that. That's fine. I mean, there is a market for that. Like, I've talked to people, that's the only places they would send their kids. but from and I don't really care. Like again, I think the school honestly had like 800 kids. Like I went to a small school, really small school, and I think this is like half the size of that.
Whoa.
So I don't know if they plan to make it a lot bigger.
Yeah.
Also, another scummy thing that just came to mind, I think the president immediately gave himself like a $200,000 raise or something like that. Where he's now like the second highest paid university president in Florida when they're like much bigger schools than it's like a tiny school. So shit like that just like rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Like it seems scummy, but and honestly, like a conservative virtue signal. It's like, we're going to be patriotic and we're going to be American values. It's like, and then your president makes $500K.
Yeah.
Well, like, which is like, he's like on par with like Florida State, which is the biggest school in the state. Something like that. So I don't know. Listen to the Blocked Report episode on that. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But I also, I mean, we were saying a while ago, there's going to be an overcorrection. It's never good. We don't want it to go too far in the other direction either. That's not healthy. That can also be scary.
Yes.
And I don't know. I think Florida maybe is where it's happening the most because DeSantis is kind of a warrior for this stuff.
Yeah.
I liked some of it. I think some of it's kind of dumb. I don't think it's really worked out with him.
Yeah.
I do think that they needed like that side needed a pugilist because it has gotten so one-sided. So maybe from a cultural standpoint, like I think maybe just to help balance it out.
Right.
I guess that's fine. I think it's also less damaging than the left-wing stuff, to be honest. Like the left-wing stuff is so just, you can see it with how it's this virus of everything turns into oppressed and oppressor.
Right.
Everything's into imperialism and colon. And it's like, no, it's not that simple. It's like they graft it onto everything. And that's why they can honestly, and this will be the only thing I say about the war, is like they can tear down posters of missing children from Israel, like because they're settlers,
right?
Or they're imperialists, and that comes from these universities.
Yep.
So I'm okay with it, with there being a counterbalance to that, even if I necessarily wouldn't want to go to that school either. Like I wouldn't have done. I don't want to go to a conservative school. I wouldn't have done well at a liberty university when I was in college. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want to go to that now if I like had my political positions now and I could go back to age 20, 21. I wouldn't go to Liberty. I wouldn't go to Hillsdale College.
Right.
I also wouldn't go to Sarah Lawrence or Vassar or I don't know, Occidental or whatever these. I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, doesn't our friend work at Occidental?
Yeah, he does. And from what I understand, what he tells me, Occidental is compared to a lot of other, huge liberal arts colleges, it's somewhat more moderate.
Oh, that's good. Okay, I just picked like a private school in LA, so I wasn't sure. Okay, Berkeley. Like I wouldn't go to any of those either. Those would be terrible. So I don't like the extremes on either side. The difference is that the extremes on the right are like a handful of schools.
Yeah.
It's like where the vast majority are on the left, where it's like professors at these schools at Yale, and these are also like some of the most prestigious schools in our country.
Right.
They're not. It's like a majority aren't even like center left Democrats. They're like far left progressives. Like that's not healthy. Doesn't mean there should be zero.
Right.
Like, but there's like not even, there's like a handful of prominent conservative thinkers at these universities who like everyone knows because that's who they are, like George Mason or Columbia, or like there's a handful of them. And then everyone else is like far left to center left.
Thomas Sowell teaches at Stanford.
Does he?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Stanford's a shit show also. Like,
I know.
And John McWhorter teaches at Columbia. I know there's like a classically conservative, prominent professor at Harvard. I can't remember his name right now, but these guys are not young. Like they've established themselves already. They're brilliant thinkers, and they're not going anywhere. But I can't imagine there are too many like young ones coming up who share their exact same views. I doubt they're getting hired.
Yeah.
So I don't mind as much the backlash, counterbalance, whatever you want to call it. If it goes too far in that direction, I do think it will be a problem. And, we'll criticize that just as much. Like we'll criticize that too.
Well, speaking of overcorrections, kind of getting back to the Snow White thing, which I think is a much bigger, like the biggest issue that we're facing right now. The biggest topic is the Daily Wire is doing their own Snow White.
Wait, what do you? How?
They're doing their own Snow White movie, kind of like
Actually?
yeah, in sort of like
Okay.
in response to the Disney thing.
How can they legally do that?
I mean, Snow White is like it's been around for hundreds of
Is
years.
Snow
Right?
White in the public domain?
Snow White is an old fairy tale, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't it Hans Christian Andersen?
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was a Disney creation. I
Nah.
know Disney gets a lot of their stuff from like Central Northern European folklore, but I didn't know Snow White. I figured Snow White was based on something from a lot of it's like Brothers Grimm stuff, and then it's kind of Disneyfied, or a lot of it's like Germanic, Nordic folklore, but I didn't
It's
know.
Brothers Grimm. It's Brothers Grimm.
It is Brothers Grimm.
Yeah.
Actually Snow White?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. So other people can do Snow White. Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
So Daily Wire is doing their take, and
Uh-huh.
and here's the thing, like
I'm
I
all
haven't
for
watched-
it.
yeah.
More stuff out there.
yeah, and like I'm sure it'll be cringy and heavy-handed, from a right-wing perspective.
Snow White pulls out an AR-15. just like unloads on the witch.
Exactly.
He cuts up the apple, puts it with a Chick-fil-A, like
she the like I'm sure it'll be heavy-handed and cringy, but at the same time, it's like if it chips away at Disney enough, and like I doubt this one little Daily Wire production will it's David and Goliath or anything, but like if it kind of gets the ball rolling in terms of like taking away audiences from Disney, and maybe that'll be a wake-up call for, not just for Disney but just for Hollywood in general, being like, holy shit, like these companies are like these more right-leaning companies are starting to take our audience away.
Yeah, that's a good point, because right now Disney basically has a monopoly on like children's entertainment for movies, right? Because they bought Pixar.
Yeah.
I don't know what DreamWorks is up to these days, but or who owns them. But if a group like Daily Wire could actually do like there's a lot of conservative parents out there, but then they steer their children to this catalog. If they like grow this catalog, I mean, Disney's in for a rude awakening. Like now that would probably take a very, very long time. But yeah, that would be like a legit competitor, so it's like, it's pretty smart in my opinion, because a portion of this country will watch that, will have their kids watch that just because. Like just because they think they're supporting, and they are supporting art that lines up more with their values, which is just like a lot of liberal people buy Nike or buy companies that say the right thing, tweet the right thing, put up the right banner. I mean, we were saying this from the beginning of the show. I think like it's just going to become bifurcated. There's going to be the conservative movie producer and the liberal movie producer. There's going to be the conservative coffee and the liberal coffee. And I mean, right now it's just so one-sided, but I could see that happening more.
Yeah. And maybe that'll be a good thing. It's funny because like the bar is so fucking low. It's just like, because like I wouldn't even be surprised if the majority of conservative, people in the U.S. are necessarily clamoring for conservative entertainment. They're probably just like, I'm fine with Hollywood garbage. Just don't lecture me. Like if I'm going to pay $18 to watch an action movie, just don't tack on a thing about the patriarchy.
It's a good point you're making, where the bar is so low. It's like the bar is so low that could just be like having the man not get shit on.
Exactly.
Like have like in Barbie, for instance, it pissed me off so much was this small part where the America Ferrera's character's husband is, the typical white dad who gets shit on, right? And this guy is trying to learn Spanish. He's like, because his wife speaks Spanish and their daughter is, like knows some Spanish, I guess, from that. And they're like making fun of him. I'm like, this guy doesn't have to learn Spanish. He's doing this to have a connection with you, to do something to like show a solidarity with your culture. And you're making fun of him. Like that pissed me off so much, because it's like, I never make fun of people for trying to learn another language, because I've lived in another country where I learned the language, and it's hard. And it's like people like it, especially Americans. People really like when Americans try to connect with their culture, because our culture is so dominant. So this guy who lives in America, it's not like he's living in Mexico or Spain or Argentina or something. He lives in America, is like taking Spanish lessons, and they're just like ripping on him the whole fucking movie.
Jeez.
And it's like, my God, like wouldn't the liberal thing to do be like, here's this straight white man trying to learn another language, and that's a good thing, and we should promote that.
Yeah.
There's just another miss from that fucking movie that overall I liked, but like another like just cringe part of it. And so my point being, take out shit like that. Have like the white dad not be a doofus. Have like men actually be kind of strong, and also have strong women. Like I think that the shtick that like conservative men want like submissive women. It's like, no, maybe for like a role player or something, but like no, they want women who can like load, like shoot a gun. I don't, but like who can shoot it, who can, you know, take target practice and I don't know, do stuff on the farm, whatever you shows how much I know about like rural culture, but like do stuff on the farm.
Yeah, you know, digging cow holes and stuff like
digging
that.
holes and milking chickens or whatever. Like, whatever people do out in the country, I love it. I love your food.
Building butter houses.
Like I think that's such a such a inaccurate stereotype.
Yeah.
Like no, I think a lot of guys find it really sexy when women are like athletic and strong and can like do things on their own and camp. God, I mean, I would never camp in my life, but like that's I don't know. People like that. So like just to like kind of balance it out more, not have like straight men be a punching bag.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's it. Like that's the bar. It's pretty fucking low.
I feel like so much of it is like if you spend like 5 minutes just going through the script, you'd be like, okay, let's get rid of this reference to the patriarchy. Like, okay, we can make her strong without being bitchy. Just clean up the dialogue a little bit and whatever. It's like that's it. It's like, but yeah, I mean, if the Daily Wire is going to do a better job of doing, you know, stuff that's just kind of straightforward, you know, there's no real agenda, or maybe there is an agenda, but it's like, you know, if they start chipping away at Disney's market share, cool, fine.
In fact, wasn't the only Daily Wire movie I haven't seen any of the movies, but only Daily Wire movie I can think of, wasn't the plot like a young woman defends herself during like a home invasion or something, or like
it was a school shooting.
School shooting. Like, talk about like the strong female lead. Like, what's stronger than that?
Yeah.
So again, it's political, right? They're very 2A. I probably actually disagree with them a lot more on gun rights and stuff like that. Then I'm probably more on the liberal side for a lot of stuff, but like, I don't know, that's to their base, and that's something that might work for them. Sure.
Yeah.
I find that interesting.
Yeah. So
I think they had a Western also, which is kind of typical. Like, I don't know, guys, do more contemporary stuff, but have they been putting out a lot of movies or no? Is it like once in a while?
Once in a while. I think they're probably like on their third or fourth feature right now, I think. But they're launching like a children's, you know, show, like a slate of children's shows that are
really. Yeah. How do you watch the Daily Wire?
I think they're basically like a streaming platform. They're like a little Netflix, the little right wing Netflix.
Yeah, like everything now is just basically we're just reinventing cable. You just have to buy all the platforms. Hey, so if you buy these 300 platforms, you can have them all on your TV. Oh, well, that's definitely a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll keep our eyes out on that. It's definitely interesting for culture.
Yes.
I don't know about the quality. We'll see. I'm all for just quality movies and television. Sure. Right. If it gets too cringe on the right, we'll make fun of it. That's what we do. We'll criticize it.
Yeah.
If it's good, cool. Even better.
Yeah.
So should we do 100 more episodes, you think?
Maybe it's like 8.
8 more?
Cap it at 8, 108, I think.
Okay. I'll record the next 92 by myself.
Yeah.
I'll just read my books.
But Benjamin,
it's been a good 100, Joe.
Yes, it has been fun, and there's a chance that you'll be coming back to the West Coast.
Yeah, this summer I'm going to be in California probably twice. Once in Southern California. I will see you.
Yeah.
So
and
long
maybe
as
we'll do some.
As long as nothing happens. And you might come to the East Coast, maybe.
No, I don't think that.
No?
No,
All right.
I'm sure I will. I'm sure I'll make it. Hey, actually, next year, I'm going. It's still early stages, but I'm planning to go with my family to a place that you like, Los Angeles. No, I'm planning to go to New Orleans.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's great. When are you going?
I think sometime in spring. I'll let you know.
Sweet.
Yeah,
let me know. I will give you all my spots.
Yeah.
Best city in America.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
All right. Well, let me know. Also, you can.
Yeah.
Maybe you should come out for my bachelor party.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Maybe we'll do an episode amongst all the drinking and merriment.
we could do an episode during the bachelor party.
Yeah. This is all blurry and shit.
If you want to bring stuff, I don't really have. If you want to bring equipment,
yeah, I'll live stream the wedding. And we'll get some content out of that too. I think.
Well, not the wedding. Yeah, you're coming to that too, but not the wedding. But the bachelor party, we can do an episode.
Yeah, that'd be fun. All right, Benjamin.
All right, it's been a good 100, Joe. To the next 100.
Yeah.
Stay reckless.